There's something that's always bothered me, and that's when people put fantasy and science fiction together, because they're two totally separate things, okay? Look at it this way. Fantasy deals with fantastic elements, like magic and witches and that sort of thing. Science fiction deals with, ultimately, technology. I think competently done science fiction looks at what might technically be possible and puts a story in that world, showing how technology has shaped and changed human civilization. Competently done science fiction can sometimes break the rules. It can assume that something will be changed, that warp drive will be invented, or it can assume that certain things that might now theoretically be impossible can happen. But I find that the best science fiction is ones that, first of all, deal with the human story. I mean, that's kind of what a story should be about. But secondly, knows what laws of physics they are breaking and why they are breaking it, and doing it advisedly. Incompetent science fiction, almost anything goes, and it has the veneer of science, but at least doesn't have any elements of the fantastic. Fantasy is anything with those fantastical elements on the story, as part of the universe. I heard this great quote: as soon as you introduce destiny, you're in a fantasy. Even if you dress it up as The Matrix or Star Wars, as soon as the universe starts responding to you personally, that's magic. You only get to draw the sword out of the stone if you're King Arthur. But an impersonal science fiction world, anybody who knows the trick, the technology of sword extraction, gets to be the King of Britain. Great quote. I think that's absolutely true. Star Wars is really a fantasy story that's set in a futuristic setting, as opposed to a fantasy story set in contemporary day, like Harry Potter, or science fiction set in a time period mimicking medieval Europe, like The Lord of the Rings. When it takes place and what the arbitrary setting isn't important. What's important is the idea of destiny, that Anakin Skywalker was the one to bring balance to the Force. Those are the sorts of things that say this is fantasy, that Frodo was the only one who could bring the ring to Mount Doom and toss it in. So sometimes it's actually still hard to figure out that distinction. But if I had a video store, my customers would hate me, because I would put Star Wars in the fantasy section where it belongs.